watching me on Aussie Beach TV. Woo! So hi, I'm Tish on Aussie Beach TV. So what's your name? Where are you from?
Hi, I'm Rad Anonima from Northern New South Wales.
And what are your thoughts on this year's election?
Look, the election here is very reminiscent to me of the recent election which happened in the US. Seeing that I lived in the US for the last decade, I was very active in politics over there, big supporter of Ron Paul, libertarian. Now, I see a lot of people in Australia complaining about the upcoming election. It's either Labor or it's Liberal. We all hate Julia Gillard, but we hate Tony Abbott even more, and this one's, 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. You know what? Wake up, people, wake up. It doesn't have to be this way. There are more than two parties in Australia. This is a democratic country. You can vote for whoever you want. Hell, nominate yourself and put yourself on the ballot if you think you can do a better job. You are a sovereign person. You have that right within this country. Now listen, I hear a lot of people talking about not voting in this election. I also hear a lot of people saying that they're going to go in and scrub out the nominees on their electoral roll with a black marker. Yeah, sure, you have the right to do that, but guess what, guys? It classes as a donkey vote. It doesn't count. Now, what you need to realize is that while it is mandatory for everybody in Australia to vote, actually, the preferred party only needs 10% of people to vote in order to win those seats. So let's just say 90% of us didn't want to vote, 10% of us voted, there would still be an outcome and somebody would get in. So sitting at home and not voting is not going to make a difference in this election. You're just going to allow that continuity of Labor and Liberal. Now this happened in the US. They had the Democrats, the Republicans, there were some great representatives, Senator Ron Paul for instance, there was also some great senators from New Mexico who ran, but people just couldn't get outside of the Democrat-Republican mindset. It's kind of just, divide and conquer. You're either one or the other. So I really don't want to see that happen here in Australia. Now, how we can get away from this is by voting for another party. Who should you vote for? I can't really say. That's, up to everybody else. I actually have to admit that I'm not so familiar with Australian politics and who is who because I have spent so long overseas. But seeing that I am back here now and politics is something that I'm very passionate about, I really want to educate people to do their homework and vote on the member that they think is actually going to stand up for what they believe in. I would really ask people to have a look at independent ministers in their area. The thing is with parties, and it's kind of strange because we even do have a party in Australia called the Independent Party. How you can be an independent and be in a party is an oxymoron, but anyway, there is. The thing was, what happens with parties is that parties have members who are people from the public who sign in and become members of the party. Now, they kind of tend to be like a majority sways kind of situation, so that you may have an independent minister who, let's just say, for example, why we're here today, we're here for GMOs. He could be against GMOs, but all the members of that party might say, no, we want to do GMOs. So he kind of has to sway with the way the members are going. So, you know what, parties, and I have spent a lot of time talking with people like Senator Ann Blessington on Facebook. She's great. She comes on and talks with anonymous groups, also from my region, originally now in South Australia. A very, very strong opponent of Agenda 21, for example. And the thing is that she's had a lot of involvement with these independent parties and tends to agree that anytime that a party happens, it kind of gets a bit complex. Perfect example, Peter Garrett. I mean, back in the 80s, child of the 80s that I am, I'm showing my age here, don't tell anyone at Aussie Beach TV, we couldn't have thought of a better politician than Peter Garrett. Hell, man, he was out there singing his lungs out, for Aboriginal land rights. But he got into a party, and what happened? The guy did nothing. From what I hear, everybody wants to kick his ass. buttocks now. But this is what happens in party politics. So look, have a look at your independents. There are a couple of interesting parties that I would like to mention. I'm not personally advocating for anybody in particular at this time, but I would say have a look at people like the Australian Sovereignty Party, look, any party that you're looking at needs to be looking at a couple of things, okay? We need to be looking at independence from global corporatized bankers. Very, very important. No economy is going to get on track as long as we're under the globalized banking system. We need to go the way of Iceland. We need to get our bankers, throw them in jail, set up ourselves. Not a lot of people realize this, but that's actually how Germany became so powerful. Unfortunately, that meant that Hitler got into a lot of power and some bad stuff happened. But, until that, he was actually nominated as Times Man of the Year. Why? Because he got rid of the banking system out of Germany and set up a system within that country that made them a powerhouse throughout Europe. That's what we need to do. We need to get rid of banking. So that's something you need to be looking at. Also, you need to be looking for politicians who, like Anne Blessington, are against Agenda 21. If you don't know what Agenda 21 is, you got to go and check this out. Get on startpage.com and just do a search for that. Find out what it's all about, because it's in your town, it's in your school, and you need to be educated about that. Things like GMOs, okay, really important. Have a look for who's against that. Have a look at your independence, guys. We can make a difference in this country if we get out of that mindset. So that's all I got to say about that. I know it's a lot, but it is important. So please do your research.
Aussie Beach TV. You're watching Aussie Beach TV.
You're watching me on Aussie Beach TV. Woo!